Welcome to People with Purpose. I am your host, Sylvain Rochon. I'm a speaker, an author, a serial entrepreneur, and a business strategist. My purpose is to engineer a paradise on Earth using cutting-edge technology. I hope this show will give you excellent examples of individuals that chose to do great things in their personal and professional lives. Perhaps they will inspire you to follow in their footsteps. The show's format is very simple. I ask my guests 3 simple questions. What is your personal purpose? Why is it important to you? And how did you get started? Now let's hear from our guest.
Hello everybody, I'd like to introduce you to Waleed Qirby. He is the co-founder of Arberra Corporation, managing director of Voice PC, and he's also the director of business development at CanSpec Corporation. And also, he's also a mentor to future entrepreneurs through all sorts of organizations. He's busy, and these companies are not related to each other in like some of the software, construction, consulting, because he's an entrepreneur. He likes to do things. Now, hopefully, we're going to be able to learn a little bit about Waleed and why he's so divergent in his interests. Because we're going to ask him the nominal question I ask all my guests before, of course. But before doing that, well, hello, Waleed.
Hey, Sylvain, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Thank you for being here with us. Now, there is a primary question we ask all our guests, and it is, what is your life purpose, Waleed?
Really simple. I want to make the world a better place before I leave it. I want to make sure that when I leave this planet one day, hopefully in a long time, that I can leave an impact in some nice way. Not an impact like a big crater. I mean, like a difference. You know, and I think that in doing what I do with all the different little businesses that I'm involved with, right now I'm making small impacts all over the place, but I really want to do something big, and that's why I'm really inspired by Arberra.
Well, why don't you tell us about Arberra, since you just mentioned this is a bigger impact type of business. Well, what is this?
It's a really, really different opportunity for me to make a change in a lot of lives. Arberra, the name Arberra can give you an idea what we're doing. Arberra is blending 2 things, trees and earth. We're building housing using clay and wood. So arbre, the Latin, or for arboreum in English, or is the word for tree. And era from terra, terrain, earth. We're building housing using clay and wood. We don't use steel. We don't use cement. So we're trying to build a house with a 0 eco footprint.
Right.
And that's different because right now, lots of companies are building housing here around the world, but all they care about is cheapest house, most profit. That's not our goal at all. Our goal with Arberra is very simple. We want to build housing that will change how people build houses. We don't want there to be an eco footprint. We want to have a 0 eco footprint, or as close to 0 as possible. And we want to make these buildings sustainable. So to say sustainable is such a general statement, but that's the key. If you can build a house that can be maintained with minimal cost, it matters. So the first project we're working to get is in East Africa. Our housing won't work in Canada or anything. It works really ideally between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, like near the equator.
Where it's hot.
That area. Well, yeah, where it's hotter and you don't get snow, and we need it to be in a certain weather condition because we let the clay is our cement. That cures. It's not just I'm not talking about digging up the ground and putting on the mud that you have on the ground. We're talking about clay. And it's treated clay to remove all the impurities. But once we do it properly, and you put it onto our structures, which are wood structures, and it's Canadian wood. This is our Canadian content thing. Our company. So this wood is treated Canadian wood it's pressure treated so that it's basically it's anti-pest, water retardant, flame retardant. Why? Because those are the things that will destroy these houses. In one of the countries we're working in right now, well, in East Africa,
Mm-hmm.
they built housing for the poor 15 years ago. The housing didn't survive 10 years. It all collapsed. I mean, maybe not every single house, but they're all in terrible shape and they're collapsing, if not collapsed. Why? They're made cheaply. See, with cement, people can basically try and mix it the way they want to save money.
Mm.
With clay, it's pretty straightforward. We're just removing the impurities. There's no cutting in that. We want it to last longer by removing all these impurities, and it's a simple process. It's not a major chemically and there's no eco footprint through the whole process. In the end, in 80 to 90 years, clay it becomes rock. But the thing is, we're building the housing on the wood mesh. I can explain to anybody who contacts me or wants to learn about it, but it's a way that's going to leave no risk of it falling apart due to earthquake, flooding. It's a really neat technology, and it's really going back to basics.
And I think you were telling me, because you told me a little bit about this a few nights ago when we met, because I've known Waleed for a number of years. We've always met, had chats and things like that. You were telling me that the residents can also patch up clay way easier than patching up things like cement, things like that. And the frame plus clay, because the clay cures and actually becomes stronger with time, that's what makes the structures last longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The old saying, well, this technology was actually the conception of a French-Canadian architect who's actually building houses. He's now approaching 90, very close to 90. He may be watching us right now, by the way. I'm not sure.
Hopefully.
But I'll make sure I'll let him know about this later if we can rebroadcast it or record it or something. It was his concept, and he started building these things, a school in Djibouti. He's building housing now in Colombia. He's old. He doesn't want to travel. We brought him to Djibouti in the first place to look at this and see if he could actually be actively involved, but he's not able to do that. But he sure gave us a lot of guidance. And we decided to incorporate the company and chase the dream ourselves. He's consulting us throughout the whole process. We've got other architects and other engineers involved, but it's his vision that helped us get our vision.
Right.
The old saying, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach him how to fish, he'll eat forever. Well, that's what I was talking about when I told you about the fact that our housing we're going to train local people on how to build this, and they're going to build it with us. So we're going to employ the local people that aren't employed to help build the housing, and those will be the same people that will maintain the housing.
Right.
Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach him how to fish. Well, if you give a man a house, it may last 10 years like it did last time. But if you teach him how to build that house and you build it with him, that's his house.
So basically, you're doing a couple of things. I mean, you have the sustainable model, right? So good for environment, zero footprint. You're also teaching the individuals that will be living there, essentially inside the structures, how to repair and build their new houses or new structures later on. That sounds like terrible business, right, to a lot of people. You know what I mean? Because it's not. You said it yourself. A good traditional business model would be, well, let's find out how you can build houses as cheaply as possible, so you can build it. And then you want to be the people call back to make repairs, because that's how you make more money, right? So why are you taking this approach, this very human social approach, and how does it tie with your purpose?
Well, a simple question is, how many people are on the planet now? We're approaching 6 billion, 7 billion now, I think.
Over 7 billion, I think.
Over 7 billion, maybe we passed the number now. And how many people don't have housing? Where are most of those people? around the equator.
Yeah.
And when you really ask the question, why don't they have housing? There's no real good answer for that, is there?
No.
They don't have an opportunity for the housing. And I'm lucky. I was born in Ottawa. In Ottawa, we all have housing. We're all taken care of, really, in some form. There's a roof on our heads.
Mm-hmm.
Or else you'd have tons of people dying in the winter.
Oh, yes.
I mean, the first winter in Canada, 1608, how many Frenchmen survived that first winter when they came off the boat? Not many. The ones that survived it were the people that were already here, back to nature. Because if you rely on the stuff around you to build what you need, it's going to survive through that environment, first of all. That's not necessarily, I believe in optimizing things. I mean, I like technology, but there's something beautiful about optimizing the clay so that it'll last longer.
Mm-hmm.
Treating the wood so that it doesn't rot in 5 or 10 years, and building something that'll stay there with a little bit of Canada in every one of these houses. Because we're using Canadian wood, we're using boreal wood from northern Quebec, northern Ontario, the northern provinces. Treated here, but all we're shipping is the wood. So in one container, we can ship enough wood to build 4 houses to house 16 people or more. Now, we're still making a profit in this, but we're not making an exorbitant profit. The goal is to use that money that we make as a profit to basically grow the company in-house and start getting the resources to do more. But not, this first project that we're doing in East Africa is for $150 million.
Right.
But we're talking about 15,000 homes. That's $10,000 a home. I mean, we don't have to make 30%, 40%, 50% margin on this thing. The idea is to make enough to be able to monitor and maintain the project over the long term in other countries. We're already now introducing our proposal to another country. But our focus is this year to start this project. Now we've got social housing, we've got high-end housing. Our first building is a high-end building, 3 stories, 12 apartments on the top 2 floors. The bottom floor is an office. But our bigger project with the 15,000 homes is for the poor.
Yeah.
And that's what inspires me, because, like I said, I would love to be blessed to do something on this planet to help others. I mean, there is no higher calling to duty for a human being than to help your fellow man.
I think so, yeah.
There is none. I mean, go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, it's okay. I think this is beautiful, but I was kind of wondering, why is that important to you personally? I mean, you did tell a story about like leaving something behind when you die, but I mean, why is it important to you in action today while you are alive to actually contribute to humanity that way?
I'll tell you, it's really simple, Sylvain. 20 years ago, I guess it's 20 years ago this month, I was in hospital here in Ottawa. I was born at the Civic, and 20 years ago, I found myself right back at the Civic being given a very low chance of survival. I mean, we're talking about the chances of survival were less than 10%. Chances of living a normal life were less than 1%. And I'm sitting there with my parents and I'm understanding the full conversation. They were talking about a tumor.
Oh my, okay.
I mean, it was devastating for my parents. I had already lost a younger brother 5 years earlier, sorry, I guess, at that point. And they're being told that I'm probably not going to make it. And I went through a tough process in hospital, but I survived. And when I survived, while I was in hospital, I made a promise to a friend, actually, a guy who was there, Italian guy from Ottawa, who was suffering from a different type of tumor. but we were calling ourselves, and I hate to pull up the term Avengers, but something like that. And it was like, let's make a difference on this planet. Let's make sure we get better and make a difference on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Paul didn't make it, unfortunately. When I was going through my surgery, that they told my parents at the time, it was not the first surgery. It was, later on in the summer. It was in August of '98.
Right.
They warned my parents that I probably wasn't going to make it. Well, I made it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I came out of it, Paul had been discharged the week before because he was doing very well.
Mm.
Well, when I was in the surgery, he was back at the hospital in critical care. And when I came out of my, anesthesia and everything else, when I woke up, they didn't tell me that he hadn't made it.
Wow.
He died. God rest his soul. He was a fantastic guy. But I made a promise to him
Mm-hmm.
and to myself that if I ever survived what I was going through, I would do everything I could throughout my life to help other people.
So was that the point, like where the pivot point where you decided to do some of these projects to help people, or do you think it actually started before that?
I've
I've
always been socially active and involved. I mean, I did volunteer work for when I was in my MBA before my tumor was even diagnosed.
Mm.
There were a handful of us that were asked. They asked the class if we could go volunteer one night a week. They created a group for volunteers to go to the food bank in Toronto and just package boxes. And there were, as I recall, there were about a dozen of us that went. And I remember every one of those there. They were all, not the dirty dozen or anything. There were a dozen, of my classmates and we were there packing boxes of food for the hungry people. And I just remember at the time thinking to myself, my God, I'm so privileged. I've had a good education. I've had a lot in here. Trying to find leftovers for people to survive.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been to Cuba, and I'd eaten in people's homes that didn't have much. I mean, I did work with a company called Camador before that I'm not involved with anymore. But at the time, we got to do work with the Cuban healthcare industry, and I remember working hands-on with the people that were like Castro's nephew ran one of the companies called Labiofam.
Okay.
And when I was there negotiating a contract, we signed the contract. He invited me for dinner with the team of the company. It wasn't a lavish dinner. It was in the kitchen of the factory where they built fertilizers and vaccines for animals. That's what they did. Their specialty was animal vaccines, and we want to export those vaccines to the Middle East, North Africa for use there in countries where they didn't have them.
Mm-hmm.
This is in 1997, 96, 95, 96 at this point. And the meal was a simple, basic meal. We sat down on a very basic table, like something that is as basic as basic. And I ate on a table with all of them, and I'll never forget this. When he dished out the food, he put food on everybody else's plate, and what was left, which was just enough, on my plate. There was no favoritism.
Mm-hmm.
I was treated like anyone else there, and I just said to myself at the time, I like the way that this guy does it. Castro's nephew.
Mm.
He drove me back to my hotel that night, but in the company van, and he dropped off everybody on the way. And I mean literally the van of all of his employees that ate with me. He dropped off every single person except for his wife who was with us and somebody else. And then he dropped me at the hotel, and I shook his hand. I said, good night. And good night, and that was it. And he left. And it was a Volkswagen van, like one of those old.
Oh, the old Volkswagen ones?
Yeah,
oh,
little camper type of, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
And it was like from the 50s. Like, it wasn't anything new. It was an old Volkswagen thing. But they took good care of it as well as they could. I mean, as I recall the time, I went to the hotel and I just said, That was the nicest night I've spent in a long time. And what a really genuine guy he is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was special. And that's when I mean, I've always had it in me, but I knew that I wanted to do things like that one day.
Right.
If you can help people and work with people to help them,
Like you
that's
mean you wanted to be that guy, like to be at the service of others, like that person
yeah,
was showing you, basically. Okay.
yeah. Well, I mean, there was a senator who brought me to Cuba at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. I went with my father on this first venture because I was involved. When I was in school, I was studying political science, international relations, international development, an honors political science degree at Western. And my focus became, in my last year,
Mm-hmm.
Cuba
Cuba.
and
Okay.
how Cuba had survived in the post-Soviet hegemony. The world was basically rejecting socialism and
Mm.
communism. But Cuba was the only country surviving with it
Mm.
at that time. And I was studying how is Cuba surviving this way? And I was seeing that with healthcare, they'd been developing vaccines and they had a whole biotech industry where they were making medications and doing research. They had in 1994, they had a hepatitis A, B, and C vaccine.
Wow.
But the U.S. wouldn't let them bring it to the States to help people because the U.S. had the embargo.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And the U.S. had done everything they could with all of their trading partners not to let that product come to market. It wasn't too long ago that we heard about another hepatitis breakout in North America.
Yeah.
All I could think to myself was, somewhere along the lines, something got missed. How that's not here yet. But going back to it, I mean, that was just one project. And, it's a world of haves and have-nots. Luckily, we have something here. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking on computers.
Yeah.
But you know what? Finally, the world of have-nots actually has some technology. I can tell you. My wife's family is in Yemen.
Mm.
My family was originally from Yemen, as I told you before.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I married a woman. I met her in Egypt, but she was also from Yemen, but from a different part. And she's in constant contact with her family through Skype.
Mm-hmm.
But she uses Skype to call them on a phone.
Right. Right. Yes.
One of her sisters got her a smartphone, so now she'll talk to that one sister, and she talks to all of them at the same time on Skype directly. But the problem is the power's out half the time, so the battery's out most of the time.
Yeah, because
When the
there's a big
power
war
goes
right
out-
now going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty big atrocity, actually. But we won't have to get political about this one. But anyways, and that's what led to, years later, Voice PC, where I was helping kids with disabilities. When I got out of the hospital, when I was in the hospital, somebody gave me Dragon. A friend of mine from San Diego came to visit me here at the Civic Hospital in Ottawa and said, Waleed, here's a copy of Dragon Naturally Speaking, version 2. And it came with Word Perfect
Mm-hmm.
and a digital recorder in the box. He said, when you get out of the hospital, you'll be able to go back to school and finish all your reports faster. Well, it didn't exactly work that way back in 1999 when I got out of the hospital and I tried to use that Dragon. No, it wasn't quite there yet, but it was a kernel for what became, because of the frustration I had with my big desktop machine, which was state of the art, getting it to use Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
45 minutes for training to have terrible accuracy. You couldn't correct anything except by typing over it.
Mm.
And I had this strange dream one night. I had to do a report for the dean of the business school. I had an idea for a thing called the PDA Exchange. I'd already registered a domain name, pdaexchange.com.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to be an eBay in 1999, 2000. I decided for like an eBay, but a place where people could get software for their portable devices. Back then, though, nobody had a portable device. It was kind of a hopeless endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
The Palm Pilot, you could download the apps for free through the Palm Store. There are a few others that were coming to market from Sony and from HP and such, but there weren't that many.
Mm-hmm.
and most people didn't have them. But that was my idea. But he said, the dean told me, a guy called Roger Martin from the Rotman School, he was the dean of the Rotman School, he said, Waleed, if you can do an independent study, you got to make this academic. I said, how about a comparative analysis of two ideas? He said, sure. I said, well, okay. I didn't have a second idea yet.
Mm-hmm.
I had to give him something by the next Wednesday, and it was like a week later. And on that weekend, I had this bizarre dream that I was running a company called Voice PC, corporate. And I woke up and I said, what the heck, Voice PC? I've never heard of that before. But it was because I've been using that damn Dragon software so much, it was kind of haunting me. So I get up and I Google the term Voice PC. Well, it's not Google, but I searched for the term Voice PC, and there was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what, there's my second idea. Did the business plans for the two corporations, the companies, the two ideas, and then did a comparative analysis of the two. And at the end of it, I said, the Dragon one's better. That's a better business. Because I had to say which is the better one. Which at the time was kind of breaking my heart, but then I realized that it was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more realistic to get that one going. So I started the business when I graduated and made my partnership agreement with the guys that had made the software. They got bought by another company. They got bought by ScanSoft, but I've also partnered with ScanSoft and Corel because I couldn't talk to Microsoft about being an OEM for Microsoft Office. They wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I talked to Corel and talked to the people from Dragon about OEMing their products and built the first voice-activated computer in 2001. And
that's to help people with disabilities, like. But
yep, and brought it to market, and I was starting to sell them at the, in September of that year already. Went to schools and pitched it to schools in their disability services in August, and started going to market when a nightmare on Wall Street happened, I guess, of sorts, which was 9/11.
Yeah.
And 9/11 happened 3 months before that, or 2 months before that. They declared the company in Belgium that was making Dragon, that had bought the company that I talked to at the beginning in the States. They'd moved everything to Belgium. It's called Lerner Helsby, LNH. They were declared bankrupt.
Mm.
So on September the 11th, when that happened, 2 days before that, I was worried about what's going to happen to my partnership. Like, it depends on who buys them. If Microsoft buys them, oh boy, that might be the end of Voice PC. I won't have my speech recognition software. And I was sweating bullets. September 13th came and rolled on by. The bankruptcy hearing still happened in New York 2 days after 9/11, but only two companies showed up. ScanSoft and Microsoft. Microsoft had been through all the antitrust trouble that year, that they bid a really low number for this huge company. They bid under $20 million, I think 15 million US. ScanSoft bid their whole corporate value on the company.
Wow.
And that's what took ScanSoft from being a company that was doing $1 million in profit to a company and that employed 28 people to being a company that now employs 16,000 plus people and $2 billion a year in the healthcare division last year.
Made a big difference.
Now, yeah, and I mean, I worked in the healthcare area for many years with them. I mean, we developed the Canadian vocabularies for it before they had a medical product.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Sometimes it's time to move on. And that's when Arberra caught my eye. I'm still doing Voice PC, managing it, but really, I see a bigger calling now. And that's why I'm excited about this business.
Well, I'm excited for you, Waleed, because you told me about it. I knew, and we've had many discussions before, right? But then the first time when we spoke earlier this week, I mean, you introduced me to Arberra, and I saw the twinkle in your eye for the, really, because it's not just a business, right?
I mean,
it's a almost a way of life in a way, the way you were describing it. This is like a passion. This is something that has really impacted the world.
I like everything about it. I like everything about what the company's about, from the idea and even things like the logo. Everything came with thought. The name, the logo, which you don't have in front of you. I don't know how I can get you a logo.
No, it's okay. No, you don't need to show it. We're just going to show it right now. And there you go.
You've shown it. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay, well, the idea of the logo is, very simply, if you look at that A, at the bottom of it, there's a drawing, a white section, which is the drawing, the sketching of a drawn idea. And it's also shaped to be like a tree.
Mm-hmm.
With the A, which is actually clay. But if you turn that A upside down, you'll see it's the house.
Mm-hmm.
There's a window, a chimney. It's really well designed. I mean, it's renewable, the idea of the tree, but the tree connects to the bottom. So the idea of being renewable and green.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything. We designed it from the beginning, and it's going to be housing in the end, which is everything we're about. Well, structure, anyways. It's coming along so quickly. My dad is involved with the business with me, and he's coming back tomorrow from his trip to Kenya and Djibouti.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trying to introduce the concept to Kenya was what he told me. I'm going to find out how it went, but also to finalize things in Djibouti.
Mm.
It's really exciting to see things. It's not like it's just fluttering along. It's starting to flap.
And it's really fascinating, and because I'm in startup spaces as well, like similar to you, I like to watch startups. I like to mentor them. I like to build them as well. It's nice to see such a business that has a social impact grow and take root and being driven and get traction like that. Because like you said before, this is there's a very high need for something like this.
Yep.
In the hot zones where most of the population actually is, it's really,
Yes.
really important. So I'm hoping you will have a high success in getting this off the ground and going. And you know, we're gonna probably have perhaps another interview, let's say in a year from now, and you can tell us all about what's going on and how it worked, and how many people were actually helped. Yeah.
Hopefully, by then I'll be able to talk to you from Djibouti or something, standing next to it. That would be nice.
I would love to see that. So thank you, Waleed, for your time.
Thanks.
That was
Sylvain.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So
I
well,
really enjoyed it. Thank you.
that's a promise in a year, right?
Well, you know, what are we now? May 4th.
May 4th.
So next year, Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo. There you go. Excellent. Thanks a lot for your time, Waleed. We'll catch you in a year.
Have a great day.
All right, bye.
I hope you enjoyed the interview. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share. Please join me also on Clubify, a social app allowing us to share ideas and where you can participate in some of my projects. The link is in the section below. Also, if you wish to recommend someone great I should interview, please let me know. And as always, follow your passion. See you next week.